When I was a kid, I loved Taco Bell. Crunchy tacos, soft tacos, bean burritos with no onions, my favorite restaurant. But as an adult, I have found better Mexican food.
Good.
Taco Bell has been replaced. And just like that, sometimes board games get replaced too.
That's right. Today we are looking at some games that have been replaced for us by newer games with either the same mechanics, but we like them more, the same theme, but maybe we like them more, or maybe just games that give us that same feel.
Yeah, and we're not saying that the replaced games, the old ones, we necessarily hate now. Many of them I still enjoy and would still play. It's just, if given the option, I prefer the new ones.
So jumping right into it, my first pick is a game that I have played maybe more rounds than any other game. And I think you probably have too.
Okay.
This is a game called Apples to Apples.
Oh, nice, nice.
So, Apples to Apples, as many of you probably already know, is a game where someone has a topic and everyone's trying to throw in a word that goes with that topic. There are cards, right? So, the game I'm using to replace it is a game called Say Anything. And Say Anything is a game where it's the exact same concept. Someone has a topic and you're all trying to put in words, but in Say Anything, rather than having cards, you write down words, which to me is a huge improvement because unbelievably, when you open an Apples to Apples box with 600, 800 cards, it gets really repetitive. Like after all these years, I feel like I've seen them all. I've seen every combination. I'm like, that joke's funny. Again, you see all of them. So I'm a little tired of Apples to Apples. Not that there was ever anything wrong with the game. I'm just very tired of it. And Say Anything to me opens it up a whole lot more. You can write a lot more possibilities, and you're also voting on what the host is going to pick. So no one really feels like they have the more correct answer in this case. Like, my is more slimy. Well, it doesn't matter. What does Ryan want in sliminess? That's what I'm looking for. So if I vote on Ryan's level of sliminess, things are better.
All right, so my number 5 is a game that I might have played more rounds of than any other game.
Really?
Believe it or not, my number 5 is Apples to Apples
really?
as well. Yeah, that's...
Okay.
You want the evidence right there, baby. So, but actually, I replaced it with a different game. So I replaced Apples to Apples with a game called Snake Oil. Snake Oil.
Yeah.
Now, I wrote down Say Anything as well. Say
Me too.
Anything is a little different than Snake Oil. Snake Oil has the same roots. It's definitely stole the same idea from Apples to Apples. But in Snake Oil, the person who's judging is a person, like a skateboarder or a vampire or a politician, and you are combining two cards and then creating an infomercial, like a sales pitch to that person and being like, hey, since they're a vampire, you could be like, so I have the fast freezer. And you can start be, hey, you know when you have too much blood to consume in one sitting and it always goes bad on you? Well, I'm going to offer you today the fast freezer. It will freeze the blood in less than 30 seconds. So it's great. Okay. Now, it's not for every group. There's definitely groups for Apples to Apples, especially large groups is still better. Yeah. Or people who don't want to make up ridiculous stuff like that. But if I had a choice, I much for Snake Oil. It leads to so much laughter. I think we've even taught the people after a few rounds, once they get it, like it just clicks and it can be hysterical.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I wrote down both Say Anything and Snake Oil, and literally when it came to saying it, I was like, I'm going to go with Say Anything because I think it's a little broader appeal, but they're both on my list because I think they're both great replacements. I think Snake Oil might even be my favorite replacement for it. Gotcha. I just know some people aren't like the performing type, so they feel like, it's a lot of pressure to make a sales pitch for a product, but It's an incredible game. Tons of great laughs.
Hopefully we diverge from this point forward.
My number 4 game being replaced is the original game of World Domination.
Oh, nice.
And that game is Risk. And I bet most of us have probably played Risk.
Unfortunately.
I'm replacing it with a game called Small World. They're very similar games in the sense that there's a map, and you're all playing against each other, and you're trying to capture areas of the maps. Area control. But the difference in Small World is rather than trying to take over the whole world, you're trying to take over as much land as you can before your species dies off. Because throughout the game, you're going to be playing multiple species, and you're trying to time when you need to kill them off. So... well, let them die off, not kill them off.
Decline.
So, it's a great game. To me, it completely replaced it because Risk is just rolling dice for 3 hours straight. But Small World, it plays in just about an hour, and there's not a whole lot of luck in the game other than one die roll. And it's really interesting, too, because there's a ton of monsters and a ton of special powers for the monsters, and you combine them to make every species unique every game you play. So... it's an amazing game.
Yeah, it feels almost simpler because you don't have this grand 3-hour strategy. But then at the same time, you get to be a lot more clever. You can be like, that's the perfect combination. I'm going to spend 3 coins and get that because I have something I want to do on the map that only that one can do. So that's a great game.
Yeah.
Okay, for my number 4, I'm replacing a game that I still love. I adore. It looks great. Machikoro. Manchikoro is such a fun game where you're rolling dice, you're trying to match numbers on cards in front of you. If you match them, you get money, which lets you buy more cards. So when you roll dice, you have a higher chance of hitting those cards. It just snowballs. Someone wins by getting all this money and builds enough stuff. It's great. So the game that's replacing it is definitely the same roots, same mechanisms. That is Space Base. But Space Base has a couple cool things I like that are slight tweaks on Manchikoro. For one is you can roll dice. You can put some of those 2 die together, and you can get that, so you get an 8, or you can split it to your 5 and your 3 and activate 2 different columns of cards, which is kind of cool. You can kind of go for the high number strategy, and there are better rewards. Combine them, or you can go for lots of low numbers and you get 2 things. The other thing that's really cool about that's really satisfying is you have all your numbers in front of you. You have a spot for your 1 through 12, because you can separate the dice. And then when you buy a new 4, the card you currently have in your 4 slot turns around, and it's going to get activated on other people's turns. And then you might buy another card, put in the 4. Now you have 2 cards activated on other people's turns. So you're really building up not just what happens on your turn with better cards, but you're really building up what's going to activate on everyone else's turn. So again, they're similar. I mean, there's maybe some groups I might still prefer Manchikoro with, just because it's a little lighter, simpler feeling. But Space Base, I think, ups the fun factor quite a bit.
I would actually like that. I haven't played Space Base, but I'd like that more because in Manchikoro, the cards that activate on your opponent's turn, I feel like in general are just not a good choice if you want to win the game. If you want to do a little bit of take that, go for it. But if you want to win, I just feel like in general they're weaker. You should just build your own up and not spend too much time on the cards that activate on the people's turns.
Yeah.
I haven't played Space Base, but I can say with all certainty it's a lot worse than Manchikoro, and you shouldn't listen to that recommendation. My number 3 is a game that replaces multiple older games, but for me, I'm really thinking about Monopoly and Trouble, because they're 2 games where you just roll dice and move around a board. But this is that experience, but with a lot more camels. So, the game I'm looking at is Camel Up. Camel Up is a game where you're rolling dice, you're moving camels forward and backwards
Sometimes,
on a track, and you're betting over which ones you think will be most successful in which places. So, when you play Camel Up, it's interesting because whatever is ahead isn't always the best thing to vote on, because something could be ahead, but also the most likely to be stepped on by another camel, and the camels can stack into this beautiful column.
Brilliant.
So you have to be careful what you're betting on, because that's not always the thing in the front that's going to be your best bet of winning. So it's a super exciting game. I've actually only played it twice, but I'm had so much fun with it. It also is fun to play with kids, but you can whip it out with adults, and it's a pretty cool experience. It takes out, it's still the same amount of randomness, honestly, because a dice is controlling the whole outcome of the game.
Right.
But the betting on things makes it pretty fun.
Yeah, it's it is random what camel's going to win, but you're not the camel. You're the guy who's this is the odds of this one winning. So you feel like you're above the camels and you're placing bets. It's like horse racing, both camels. And the stacking is brilliant. Sometimes you're I think the blue's going to win. And it steps on a backwards camel and moves the wrong way. And you're like, no, let me down now.
The backwards camel can go so far.
It's amazing. All right, so my number 3 game is not replacing mechanisms. It's not replacing theme. It's replacing its place on my table. Meaning, I'm replacing Emotap. Now, I like Emotap. I like Emotap. But I bring out Emotap in a very specific situation. That's when not necessarily a filler, not like a light, I want to teach people how to play board games, but just kind of like a filler plus. I want something a little more significant than that. I actually have used it in that situation where someone texts hey, I'm running 45 minutes late. You're like, cool, well, we're going to play a big game all together as a group before they get here. Let's play Emotap. It's a super fun game. You're building the monuments of Egypt up, physically building them with blocks. Really satisfying, but I found since I've found this new game, it's the game I'm going to bring out in that situation, and that is Trekking Through History. Yeah. Trekking Through History is really cool. It's totally different. It's card drafting, trying to kind of keep dates in order, and I fulfill itineraries. Mm-hmm. Totally different mechanisms, but it's just I'm going to bring it out in the same situation. I want a 30, 45-minute game that is light. They're both light and rule overhead. They're very simple to learn, but they both give you really cool decisions. And I think trekking is a little less punishing, so you don't feel like you're going to get an Emotap, as you know well. Once you get behind an Emotap, it's kind of tough to come back. It can be a little frustrating, I think, for a player learning their first time. They're like, wow, you're just going to win. You're like, yes, I am. But trekking is a little more, it's a little lighter. They're both, again, same place at the table. I'm probably going to take out Trekking Through History, which, have you played yet?
I haven't, but I've played Trekking Through the National Parks, and I've watched your video. Check it out here for yourselves.
Well, let's stop this video right now and play.
Okay. Alrighty, I'm out here taking another stab at classic dice-based game. Wow. This time, I'm coming for you, Yahtzee. Because does anybody like this game? Because it's just a game where you roll dice and put together sets. But you know what would make it better?
Monsters
and punches. And Japan. So, this is a game called King of Tokyo.
Oh.
King of Tokyo is a game I did not think I would like. And actually, I think the first little bit that I had the game, I was like, really lukewarm. But it's really warmed up on me. It is like a short 10, maybe 20-minute game if you're really pushing it. Game that's like Yahtzee because you're building sets, but the thing that sets it apart is one person is the king of the hill, or the king of Tokyo. And that person's getting punched by everyone, and they are punching at everyone. At any point when that person gets hurt, they can decide to leave, but the way to get the most points in the game is by staying in the middle. But if you get knocked out, you're done for good. There's also power-up cards you can buy through the game that really transform how the game's played, because you can have powers that make you stronger while you're in Tokyo, or you can have powers that make you stronger when you get hit. So, King of Tokyo is, to me, a perfect replacement for Yahtzee. I never want to bring Yahtzee to the table again, and that would be like the game, like, hey, this has that dice rolling. If you're into that, like, kind of crazy random odds, like, it has that, but in a much more fun package. And this is Big Kitty.
I feel like I won this war because in one of our other top 10s, I had King of Tokyo. In your words, watch the video if you don't believe me, were the key to this list is to pick games that are good.
I mean, the key to putting together a list like this is picking 10 good games.
You don't like King of Tokyo?
It's okay. It's okay.
So, I won.
Well deserved.
All right, so my next one here is going to be very painful for someone watching this video. So, someone we both care about.
Oh no.
Cassie. So he's been on this very channel. So Cassie,
one of our own.
One of our own. If you're watching this, I suggest use the chapters down below. Skip ahead to the next one. You don't need to hear this because my game being replaced is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle is really fun. It's really fun. It's like
it's really fun.
It's really good. I love you, Cassie.
No, it's actually good. It's
actually really good. So you're like doing deck building. You're fighting a boss, the bosses of Harry Potter, and you're fighting them. You're doing it. The deck building is just really cool. You get to kind of play off each other. Like, you know, you have this, you build up your cards. Like, all deck builders are getting more and more powerful. Yeah. And it's cool because you pick up, I think your bonuses seem so small in Harry Potter. You're like, hey, I'm going to let you draw one card on your turn. So, like, cool, I get 6 cards sometimes. But then you're like, I'm going to pass you 3 damage. You're like, cool. Well, I'm going to pass you all this 5 power. And then it just explodes and you just obliterate everything out there. But it's kind of been replaced by a game called Eon's End. I really like Eon's End. Some of the main things I like more about it is it's more difficult, number one. Yeah. So Harry Potter is just pretty simple. I mean, you can tweak it yourself and make it harder, I guess, if you want to. But it's really simple. Eon's End's a much harder puzzle to solve. They're both cooperative, by the way, unless I didn't say that clearly. They're both cooperative. Eon's End is more difficult. I think the number one thing that I like about it is not the fact you don't reshuffle your discard pile. That's unique, too. It does some unique things. But the number one thing I like about it is lots of deck builders fall into this issue where if you have 5 buy power, buy the 5 card because it's the best one out there. But if you get the 6 buy power, buy the card that costs 6. You always just buy the best card. Eon's End has 3 different ways to spend your money. Mm-hmm. You can do it on cards. You can like prep your portals, which lets you, or gates. No, not called gates. Breaches, and ways basically to blast off powers. You can like upgrade more of those, so you can have not just 1 power, but you can blast 4 powers off at the same time. So you're like, well, when do I want to like upgrade that? But then also you can just charge your personal power, which are so powerful, but they might take like 5 turns of charging. So like, when do I commit those? So that decision, so you don't feel like, well, I have 4 buy power, I will take the 4 card. But you're just like, maybe you don't buy cards for a while because you want to get more spell spots. It's really good. It's a lot harder. The theme is worse. It's stupid. You're like, I'm defending Gravehold and Rageborn, the monster is coming. The theme is dumb. I hate the theme. But it's a much cooler play, at least in my opinion. Still like Harry Potter, but I would choose Eon's End. Yeah,
I'm with you, because they're kind of the only 2 like team-based deck building games that I've played a lot of. Like, I think I like Dominion more as a deck builder over either. Yeah. But like they're the ones like you're both on a team, and to me, like the big thing with Eon's End is those powers are so fun. And I like the flipping it over mechanic, and the fighting's cool, but like, the theme's a little weaker in it, but I think it's a better game overall. I'd probably rather pull it out, because Harry Potter's a really fun game. And one thing that's really cool about Harry Potter is that it has the different villains you fight. You can have 3 different powers combined fighting against you, which is interesting, but Eon's End, I think, is a little more difficult game and has some more interesting decisions you have to make while you're playing. So, it's a fun game.
You really have to play off each other, or you will lose. You will lose. You really have to work together, so it's really cool. Really good game.
Finally, my number 1 is a game that replaces a whole category of games, both classic, medium age, and brand new. This is a game that, against all odds, I adore. And I think is one of the best games I've ever played. And one of the most versatile games for groups and different ages. And a lot of people like it. And it has mechanics that are super timeless that people understand before they even play the game because they're already into it. And that is that all card games can be replaced. Any card game you like. Any of them, Hearts, Sergeant Major, Solitaire. I guess that's kind of
Those are the only ones he knows, so he has to stop
Poker, Blackjack. That's about it, actually. All the games you play with Canasta. All those games you play with cards. This is a trick-taking game made to unify us because you're on a team. And that's The Crew. The Crew is what's called a trick-taking game, if you're in on the card game lingo. That's a game where there's different suits of cards, and you're trying to be the one with the highest number and take the trick. Now, in a normal trick-taking game, you play against each other, and you're trying to take the tricks for yourself, or maybe some of them you don't want, but you're trying to take the tricks that are important to you. It's the same thing in this one, but you're actually all on a team, and every mission of the game is unique. So, sometimes I'm wanting to take, the pink 7, which could be like the 7 of clubs, for example, if you're playing normal cards. And Ryan needs to take the blue 4. And I need to make sure when that blue 4 comes up, if I only have a blue 9 in my hand, I'm going to take it from him. So I cannot play that blue 9 if I get stuck with this. So that would be bad. So we're trying to strategize as a team. How do we get to each other's hands, the suits that we need? And there's also a bunch of tricks along the way. There'll be things that make you not able to communicate in certain ways. There'll be things that make you have to get the cards in certain orders. Or maybe you can't get any cards on a mission is one of my favorite missions in the whole game. So it's a really awesome game. It seems to play with everyone great. I just played it again this weekend, like a dozen rounds, and had an amazing time. I was like, this is just a great game.
Nice. It's one of my top 10 favorite games in my life. So, I concur. That's a really good game. And it does replace lots of the old trick-taking games, and people tend to leave in really good moods. So
it does. That's true. People leave the table happy.
It's a game where you play and people are like, I want to play more. Rather than you're like, come on, guys, can you play my game more? People are like, let's do it. Let's play more. Deal it up again. I've stayed up late playing this game a lot with people who are like, I want to play more rounds. Or like, let's do it.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. All right, so my number one, the best one, because it comes last, is...
Does it replace as many games as me replacing every card game?
No, not every game ever, but it actually is a little more broad. So something I love is very complicated cooperative games. Yeah. And the reason I like complicated cooperative games is since you're all talking together, if they're too easy to kind of crack the code, then, Forbidden Island's a good example. I like Forbidden Island, but it's not going to keep my interest for like 20 plays, especially with the same group, because you're like, we kind of know what we're supposed to do. Yeah. You're going to burn out on it quicker. So I like my cooperative games being higher in complexity. The problem is it's hard to find a good one. So Robinson Crusoe, and the one I like slightly more than that is First Martians. I'm replacing both those games. They're both great, but the issue with those two games is if I want to play them, I've played First Martians many times. Mm-hmm. If I want to play that right now with you, I'm going to take the box down. It might take me an hour to get it set up, remember how it's played, and then learn that mission, because all the mission, it's fun, but we're going to be like an hour and then 20 minutes to tear it down, and we're not even playing in that time frame. So it's being replaced by
Spirit Island?
Spirit Island. Yeah. So Spirit Island is not a new game. In fact, it came out the same year, but I played it way after I played the other games. Yeah, I played Robinson Crusoe a really long time ago, First Martians a while ago, and I just learned Spirit Island. It's maybe not as complicated rules overhead, but it gives you some of that same, it's great decisions, very complicated, very hard to win. So it's all that complexity I want, but I played it way fewer times. I think I could get that game up and running in 10 minutes, maybe 5. That's such a difference. It's just First Martians, I think I've said on this channel before. It's a game I actually like. I don't get to play it. I never play this game because you're like, do I have a few hours to commit to relearning it? And then same thing, you tend to be the one who sets up Robinson Crusoe, so you have to do that work, but you're always trying to remember. Yeah. They're just complicated. And Spirit Island is just so easy to get out and play. It fills that niche. It's just like really hard cooperative game.
It's interesting because I think I would agree. I think I've played 3 games of First Martians with you, maybe, and I don't know how it works. And I liked it, and I like Robinson Crusoe a lot. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But we played 1 game of Spirit Island. That's all I've played, and I feel like I still kind of in my head understand most of it. I'd have to read some stuff for sure, but like that 1 game a few months ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of remember how that game works. But First Martians, I'm like, I don't know. There's
it's
a bunch of
complicated.
panels. Then there's a thing, but so I don't know. I love First Martians and Robinson Crusoe a lot, and I don't know if it replaces it entirely for me, but definitely like would be a much easier game to get to the table.
Yeah,
and I could see it being that for me. Like, oh, I want to play a complex co-op that has a lot of interesting things that are happening,
Mm-hmm.
like multiple things that are happening, and then like damage management at the same time,
Right.
and like requires a high level of teamwork to win.
Really hard to play, really
And-
hard to win. Yeah.
That would get to the table so much faster because we learned that so fast together. So
Yeah, even though it's hard, it has a very high complexity rating. Most people are like, it's so hard. But
Yeah.
I found once you do it, it's easy, as opposed to First Martians, where I'm like, it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Then I'm like, third playthrough, I was like, man, I'm still struggling. Every mission being different.
Yeah.
You re-struggle with the rules. I love it. It's kind of like my whole trekking through history placing Emotep. It's just Spirit Island's going to be the one that gets on the table. So First Martians is really hard to get out.
it's a great pick. So those are our top 10 games that replaced other games for us. If you got any games that replace games for yourself, how about you let us know in the comment section down below.
And of course, thanks so much for watching our video. If you want to like it, that's so cool. Subscribe to the channel. You'll see more stuff like this, more top 10s, playthroughs, reviews, and all that good stuff. See ya.